Shadowgate are going to overfarm before looking to remove Azumarill from the field of play, always ensuring we've got residual energy good to go. Down goes Azumarill, the opponent sends back out Golisopod. In theory, a complete wall to the energy, but they very quickly found herself in Hydro Cannon range. Down goes Golisopod, the opponent sends out the Kentucky Fried Chicken. Bird of Death, Gator grinning away, gonna fire off the final Hydro Cannon and sweep the entire team. GG's and thanks for playing. Welcome back to the channel. Recently, I hopped onto Twitch and checked out one of my favourite streamers, the one and only TJ. This highly talented battler is often rocking triple shadow teams or just very attack-weighted Pokemon. He is arguably the best Morpeko player in the world. The team he was using is going to be the team that I'm going to showcase today. So all credit goes to TJ. His Twitch is linked down below. I would 100% recommend giving this guy a follow because he is one of the very best battlers. And he's always using a very attack weighted, very glassy Pokemon, meaning battles are always insanely fun to watch. What's good about this team is you've probably got all three of these Pokemon already built. Both Feraligatr and Jumpluff at various points over recent seasons have been ranked #1 on PvPoke. They've dropped in usage, but after using them, let me tell you, these two monsters are still absolutely incredible. The Annihilape needs no introduction. If they're weak to counter, this thing can just run through teams and of course has the ability to vamp up its own attack. On paper, this team has various core breakers, but the thing is, all three of these Pokemon have the ability to sweep, so you can navigate your way through even tricky matchups. With all that being said, without any further ado, let's get into the battles. And in game 1, we find ourselves in the Jumpluff mirror. I attempt to throw the acrobatics, losing CMP. However, the opponent tries to lock an aerial ace bait. We call the bait. Well, I didn't really call the bait, to be honest. I had no intention of shielding whatsoever. If the opponent's got acrobatics, they will win the zero shield scenario. But as they fire off an aerial ace, it becomes apparent they've likely got energy ball as a second move. With that in mind, despite having the lower attack, we're able to win that zero shield matchup. The opponent sends out Morpeko. I'd already decided that I was going to spam the switch into Gator. I instantly regret that decision as out comes Morpeko. I completely sacked Gator and trust in Annihilape sweeping the back line. The reason I completely sacked Gator is I saw Jonkers posted a team with a Drapion in the back. And with that in mind, I think Annihilape with 2 shields I might be able to sweep the back line. We fire off the Rage Fist, force the protection. These counters are now starting to tear through Drapion's HP. Annihilape going to shield up the incoming Aqua Tail. Despite the opponent throwing the Aqua Tail bait, no bait will ever save Drapion's fate. As we're able to fully counter farm down, we land a heap of boosted counter damage on the incoming Morpeko. And the question now becomes, can we Fairy Wind farm down before they reach the Psychic Fangs? Yes, we can. Annihilape hard carried the team and we take that game. Heading into the next battle, we see Jellicent in the lead position. The opponent say switches into Typhlosion, and I respond with Gator. And I think this is the incorrect counter swap. I certainly should go Annihilape, because Gator does not win this in any even shielding scenarios. We've been spamming a lot of Typhlosion propaganda recently, and that is because it's an absolute monster. It's always going to beat Gator, especially with a 1-turn energy lead. With that in mind, I'm going to play out the 1-shield scenario. Gator gets removed from the field of play, but looking at the health, as long as I don't get 1-turn bring in, 5 counters should knock out, meaning they're not going to reach the Thunder Punch. Annihilape gets that counter farm down, back out comes Jellicent. Annihilape going to fire off the Rage Fist. A Rage Fist won't be lethal, but does do a very solid dent. Despite losing switch advantage, I'm trying to get myself back in the game, able to make the Surf Catch, back onto Jumpluff, and out comes Fortress. I was really worried it might be a double fire team, but seeing Fortress in the back certainly gives me a very easy win con. We land the acrobatics, the opponent going to fire off the Rock Tomb, and the win con is going to be of Annihilape. I'm going to need to fully counter down this Fortress and reach double Rage Fist at the return in Jellicent. The opponent unable to reach a charge move. Annihilape leaves completely loaded. Back out comes Jellicent. Good timing, of course. 1 counter and the first Rage Fist. The opponent looks at that Hex farm down. Annihilape says no, reaches the next Rage Fist, and we take that game. GG's that opponent. Heading into the next battle, we see Shadow and Shadow Crime with Jumpluff into Dusnoir. I instantly go for the aerial ace bait. I never bait on this channel, and this is why. Of course the opponent call it, which is kind of heartbreaking. Acrobatics would actually pick up a 1-hit KO in this matchup. As disappointed as I am that I don't get to shout, get that Dusnoir off my screen. Going straight aerial ace actually isn't too bad in this matchup, as it still enables you to win the zero shield matchup. My opponent actually opts to dump their energy, which is best case scenario. I would have needed DRE to get off the next Aerial Ace, which is super inconsistent. The opponent plays it safe, fire off the energy, enabling Gator to get a very nice Shadow Claw farm down. And I'm very grateful for the energy lead as out comes Dedenne. This little Wish or Timu Pikachu is definitely a huge quarter breaker for the team. However, with an energy lead and a shield advantage, we're not sitting in a bad spot. I'm going to shield up the Parabolic Charge, wanting to land a Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon rocks them into the red health range, and the opponent is going to be forced to throw. We're going to have an Annihilape now with a shield advantage, looking to sweep the back line. The opponent pivots out into Diggersby, and they instantly concede the match. Let's fucking get it. GG's. Heading into the next battle, we see Primeape in the lead position. The opponent opts to stay in, which likely means they've got Ice Punch. If they're a Shadow, I'd probably respect this, as the regular one is survivable. They actually bait with the Rage Fist, then send out Ferret. We bank the Acrobatics, make the pivot into Annihilape. Annihilape can tank a Trailblaze. I'm just going to fire off the Ice Punch before they reach the boosted Swift. They actually go for the Swift bait. Why? I have no idea. Clearly the opponent didn't know either, as they then concede the match. What a strange battle. Let's just pretend it never happened, and we're moving swiftly on. Shadow Jumpluff into Regidrago. Most people here would farm to the Acrobatics bait with the Aerial Ace, but YOLO, Acrobatics lands through 2 Protect Shield, and Regidrago's instantly rocked into the red health range. The opponent returns the favour, full sending the Dragon Energy. We then Simul Swap and find Gator into Scizor. Gator gonna strike first, firing off the Hydro Cannon, forcing the first Protect Shield of the game. The opponent then heavily overfarms, playing 2 CMP, but as I've got 2 shields, I'm more than happy to invest 1 here to get this move off and force the opponent to either go all shields down or lose their Scizor. The opponent does go all in on Scizor, and they are still going to be forced to throw, as we would Shadow Claw farm them down before they Bullet Punch farm me down. Or perhaps it'd be a Simul KO, but either way they are forced to throw. I'm really hoping the opponent waits to see what comes in. I can snipe the counter, but unfortunately unable to do so, and I'm going to shield up the Night Slash, as I do want to keep all the health I can. The opponent sends out Diggersby. All you've got to do is wait for the inevitable catch attempt. There is said catch attempt. We aren't throwing, and the opponent is going to concede the match. Heading into the next battle, we see Azumarill in the lead position. The opponent say switches into Typhlosion this time and make an adjustment, sending out Annihilape. Whilst Annihilape can bully its way through this matchup, it does force you to invest Protect Shield. I'm going to fire off 2 counters. This Rage Fist certainly goes unshielded, because if the opponent shields, we're just going to counter farm down in 2, meaning it'll be a wasted shield. Just the Incinerate damage got me insanely low. I'm hoping I reach the boosted Rage Fist, but I actually don't. I am going to send out Gator here, as of course an Ice Beam would be double super effective into the Jumpluff and do like 80%. Gator is able to survive a play rough, and these bubbles don't really do too much. Gator gonna fire off 4 Shadow Claws and the Hydro Cannon for optimal fast move timing. Of course, you want to throw at 1, 4 or 7. Here I'm gonna throw on CMP. I don't think this Hydro Cannon will quite be lethal, but should leave the opponent low. Like I said in the previous battle, I'm really hoping this isn't a double fire team. If it is, you better believe as soon as I see that second fire type, which I see, I'm saying no thank you, and I'm running for the hills. GG's to that opponent. In the next battle, we see Scizor in the lead position. I don't often bait, but I think in this matchup, you should always just go straight Aerial Ace. You do outpace the back-to-back Aerial Aces, so again, much like the previous battle against Dusnoir, you're always going to win this in the 0 shield scenario, but let's be honest, who doesn't shield Scizor? So what you're actually going to do is force a Protect Shield. Rather than concede a farm down here, I'm going to aggressively send out Gator. I am going to respect the potential Trailblaze. It's probably a Night Slash bait. We don't really care. The opponent actually gets the boost, then send out Greninja. This isn't a great matchup for Gator, but Shadow Gator hits insanely hard, and Greninja cannot tank a hit for shit. We end up throwing the next move on CMP. However, we were outside of Night Slash range, despite it being neutral, and they found themselves in Hydro Cannon range. The opponent is either going to have to shield here or lose their Greninja. The opponent invests their Protect Shield. They're going to be unable to Water Shriek and farm down. They're going to be forced to dump yet further energy. My opponent is doubled up on Night Slashes. They're insanely low, so if I send out Jumpluff, they're going to be forced to dump this energy, or we just Fairy Wind farm them down. Night Slash removes Jumpluff from the field of play. I send out Annihilape, the opponent not wanting to concede a farm down. I send out Clodsire, and Annihilape is off to the races. Whilst Earthquake would hit hard, who doesn't love to bait a Shadow Pokemon? The opponent go for the Stone Edge bait, and that bait seals my opponent's fate. Annihilape, now smelling blood in the water, lands the first Ice Punch, reaches the second Ice Punch on the CMP tie. Annihilape going to be moving Clodsire from the field of play. We're going to counter farm down the remainder of the team and take that game. Heading into the next battle, we see Dusclops in the lead position. Another somewhat problematic Pokemon for me. Dusclops does have access to Ice Punch. I haven't seen anyone not run Ice Punch, but of course you could run like Poltergeist. If you're purified, you could run Return or even Fire Punch, but I'm 99.9% sure this will be an Ice Punch. Right on cue there is said Ice Punch. The opponent then pivots out into Cradilly and we send out Annihilape. Again, who doesn't love to bait a shadow Pokemon? They go for the Rock Tomb bait. Annihilape easily tanks the damage here. I could fire off a charge move, but what I'm actually going to do is go for the one shield and full counter farm down. I think that's potentially a mistake. While Annihilape will leave at 100 energy, we are 2-stage debuffed, meaning if Dusclops returns, a Rage Fist at -2 certainly won't knock out. With that in mind, we've got so much energy, so I'm going to fire off a Rage Fist, I'm going to bank this energy and then pivot into Gator, saving Annihilape's energy for the end game, where hopefully it'll be more useful. The opponent sends out Marowak, the Pokemon that's notorious for cheesing its way through this matchup, especially with 2 shields intact. Gator fires off the Hydro Cannon, forcing the first protection, and unfortunately we don't even reach the second. I'm now in such a tricky spot. I send out Jumpluff. Rock Slide, of course, in this range will be lethal. We call the bait. Why would you bait there? Or if we are back in this game, we fire off the Acrobatics. Acrobatics forces the opponent's final protection. The opponent anticipates the combo play, but is simply too little too late. Ice Punch removes Dusclops from the field of play. Back out comes Marowak. We're able to reach the Rage Fist, and that is going to be all she wrote. GG's, and thanks for playing. A bit of a dicey endgame. We managed to get over the line, heading into the next battle. Again, we see this little Wish or Teemu Pikachu in the lead position, which is definitely a huge core breaker for the entire team. If you've got Energy Ball, it's actually not too bad a matchup. If you're on a full flyer moveset, this matchup's quite miserable, because everything's resisted and the opponent is going to be able to buff up the defense before you even land a charge move. But with that being said, Jumpluff is just a bloody monster. Despite only hitting for resisted, it actually pushes this matchup fairly close in the zero shield matchup. You can see 2 acrobatics do leave him low. Rather than concede a farm down, I'm going to send out Gator, go for the one shield and try and Shadow Claw farm him down. The opponent not wishing to concede a farm down, send out Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn going to be greeted with the Ice Beam that unfortunately only hits for neutral, but a lot of neutral damage at that. Ferrothorn is probably in 5 counter range, so in theory they shouldn't get the move off. However, if they get damage registration error or come in a turn late, they'll actually reach another Power Whip. So with that in mind, we're going to play it safe, throw 4 counters, make the catch, back onto Jumpluff, ensuring we save a shield for Annihilape. Annihilape does have energy good to go, but the opponent still has 2 shields. They pivot out into Lapras. We fire off the Rage Fist. Rage Fist, of course, does go shielded. And at this point, I'm committing to fast moves. The question becomes, can they reach another Sparkling Aria? I'm tapping my phone like a raving lunatic. Let's go, Annihilape. Let's go, Annihilape. Annihilape able to counter farm down, and we take that game. Heading into the next battle, we see Sableye in the lead position. A Pokemon I've been thinking about running myself. Of course, the Shadow variant. I'm seeing so many bloody ghosts. If you've got a good Sableye team, post it down below. Opponent fires off the foul play. Again, we're just going to YOLO the acrobatics, get ourselves a shield, or land that massive damage. Acrobatics gets no respect. The opponent near gets one shot. We can survive another foul play. I'm going to bank the Aerial Ace, make the pivot into Gator, giving me a 1 Shadow Claw running start. Out comes Toxapex. I see some people opt for Crunch to give you some neutral play into opposing water types. I think Ice Beam's kind of mandatory. It's beautiful for grass types and especially Jumpluff. Hydro Cannon spam's real as well. Whilst Hydro Cannon is resist, they do really start to add up over time. The opponent heavily overfarms, looks to remove Gator from the field of play, but Brine does not cut it. I'm not sure if that's an undercharge, but Gator hangs on fractional HP, reaches the Hydro Cannon, and down goes Toxapex. The opponent sends out Shadow Swampert, and in the 2 shield scenario, this should be fairly simple for the ape. Shadow counters are absolutely disgusting, tearing through Swampert's HP, and it's only going to get worse as Rage Fist, of course, does vamp up that damage. We make the catch back onto Jumpluff. Was it necessary? Not really. The opponent actually fully undercharged. I'm not entirely sure why I'm throwing this Aerial Ace. The fast move beatdown is the win con. The opponent playing it out to the very bitter end, but of course I've still got 2 shields intact, and this is completely unlosable. My only lose con with me is essentially having a heart attack, or not tapping. Thankfully, I don't have said heart attack. I don't forget how to tap my phone, and we take that game. In the next battle, we found ourselves another problem. This matchup made worse by me getting a frame drop and actually getting denied here. Despite Jumpluff being fully walled, Jumpluff can actually more than hold its own here because Acrobatics is absolutely busted. You can see even resisted does a decent chunk of damage. The second Acrobatics with the residual Fairy Winds actually put Tinkaton into the red health range, which is kind of absurd. I recognise the opponent's just going to heavily overfarm, so rather than concede even more farm, we pivot into Gator. The opponent fire off the Play Rough. Play Rough does a very solid dent. I'm glad I didn't shield as out comes Lapras. I tend not to shield my save switch if the opponent go for the chip and dip. The thought process, most people look to force a shield and then they just hard punish you anyway, so it kind of ends up being a wasted shield. I'm hoping that with 2 shields and an ape, I can just punch through the remainder of the team. I'm hoping I can punch down this Lapras before they reach the next Sparkling Aria, but it becomes apparent I'm not going to be able to achieve it, so instead I make the catch back onto Jumpluff. Jumpluff tanks the damage. The opponent sends out Gator. They look for the Shadow Claw farm down, unable to get it before the Aerial Ace is reached. Aerial Ace forced the Protect Shield. The opponent has a huge energy lead. I send out Ape. I really need this to go unshielded. If the opponent shields, they're just going to outpace to the double Hydro Cannon. I recognise I cannot win the game and I'm going to concede the match. GG's to that opponent. In the next battle, the tough leads continue. I think this is why Jumpluff's kind of dropped off in popularity. There are plenty of Pokemon that do provide Jumpluff quite a few issues. We fire off the Acrobatics. Acrobatics is able to land. Ice Punch is double super effective, but Dusclops hits like a wet noodle and one is very easily survivable. So I'm sure if you've made it to this point in the video, you'll notice where I see leads that are problematic, I just sack the lead and look to try and get an energy lead one of my back 2 Pokemon and hope with an energy lead we can kind of start rolling through the back line. Whilst Dusclops doesn't hit particularly hard, they're very bulky and very spammy. They even reach a depart in Shadow Punch on my Gator as well, and things aren't looking great. Speaking of not great, out comes Drapion. We force the first Protect Shield with the Hydro Cannon and then make the pivot into Annihilape. It's super annoying for me that Dusclops is still around. However, we correctly shield the Crunch, and then this is only an Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail still does a solid chunk, but very easily survivable. I can then throw 4 counters, throw the Rage Fist on the CMP tie. Even resisted, this will knock out. Down goes Drapion. The opponent sends out Talonflame. I recognise I'm not going to survive the Incinerate, so I fire off 1 counter. And the Rage Fist. Rage Fist goes unshielded. We get yet more frame drops, but thankfully we do throw a good time in. We reach the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon forces the opponent's final Protect Shield. I throw 1 and the move, meaning that Incinerate will not register. And it's going to be Shadow Claw versus Hex. Who will prevail? Gator just about gets the farm down, and we take a very close game. Oof, GG's to that opponent. In the next battle, we see Gator into Jumpluff. If the opponent Ice Beam me, we're almost going to get 1 hit KO, but you know how it goes over here. We call the bait, the opponent throw the Hydro Cannon, the little cotton ball, laughs at that pitiful damage. Acrobatics forces the Protect Shield. I'm then actually going to bank my energy and make the catch onto my save switch of Gator, where the damage will be resisted. The opposing Gator is still almost at full health, as them Fairy Winds didn't do much of anything. The opponent tried their luck, making the Hydro Cannon catch onto Mandibuzz. Catch attempt unsuccessful, so Gator fires off the Ice Beam. Ice Beam does a very solid dent. I'm just going to set off the Hydro Cannon here. While Hydro Cannon won't be lethal, it will put them into Aerial Ace range. This must be an awful Mandibuzz. We don't even need to Aerial Ace it, they're just in 1 Fairy Wind range. Normally they can survive 1 Ice Beam, 1 Hydro Cannon reasonably well, but I'm not complaining. The opponent pivots out into Scizor and we are full sending. Does the opponent respect the damage? It's a Scizor, of course they do. We've now got Annihilape with a 2 to no shield advantage. We often reverse 2 shield flex, but with that in mind, I am going to shield up the incoming Night Slash. The opponent then go for the wham bam combo play, send out Gator. We invest the Protect Shield over farm, fire off the Rage Fist. Rage Fist will be moving Gator from the field of play. We've got enough residual energy to outpace Scizor as well. And once again, Annihilape is going to clean up. GG's, and thanks for playing. Heading into the next battle. Oof. That is a problematic Pokemon. Of course, Jumpluff fully walled on this moveset. Even my Fairy Winds are resisted. It's got Psychic Fangs that hit Annihilate for super effective, and Shadow Gator does not appreciate Shadow Thunder Fangs. They tear through your HP. But much like we've seen against Tinkaton, even against Dedenne, even when Jumpluff's walled, the combination of Fairy Wind and Acrobatics is no joke, and we actually make this matchup quite close in the Zero Shield. We land the next Acrobatics, I then pivot into Gator, and it ends up being a simultaneous swap. We appear to have come out on top as my Shadow Claws hit Dusclops are super effective and the Hydro Cannon does a very solid chunk. Here the opponent's on 6, I'm thinking double Shadow Punch, 1's an easy tank. Nope, that's a return, holy! Gator just about survives. I'm going to fire off the Hydro Cannon. The Hydro Cannon goes unshielded, and would you look at that, it's a Wigglytuff in the back. We hate losing to Wigglytuff, but I respect the return spice. I can't win this battle. So even though they're using Wigglytuff, we are going to say GG's, not be a bad sport, and we're going to head into the next battle. We see Jumpluff into Golisopod. A very nice lead for me. They can hit for neutral, whereas we can hit for super effective. One Aerial Ace isn't lethal, so you know the drill. Just force in the acrobatics, hope the opponent looks to call the bait. Unfortunately for me, they do not. As we've got a shield advantage, we're going to set off the Aerial Ace, force some chip damage, and then make the pivot into Gator, saving Jumpluff as the potential third shield. Aerial Ace, to my surprise, forces the opponent's final Protect shield, setting up Gator over 2-0 shield advantage. Of course, I'm going to shield up the incoming X's that the opponent actually goes for the Aqua Jet, probably for some bad manners, or recognising I'm forced to shield to try and keep some health. The opponent then pivots out into Azumarill, and that is not a great counter swap, when Gator has not only a shield advantage, but a huge energy lead as well. Feraligatr grinning away, thinking, trainer, if this is your best Gator answer, you, sir, are in trouble. Gator going to invest the final Protect shield, blocking up the incoming play rough. Gator once again maintains disciplined fast move timing, fires off the Hydro Cannon, not only removing Azumarill from the field of play, but also ensuring we've got residual energy good to go. Back out comes Golisopod. Golisopod might fully wall the energy, but they found themselves in Hydro Cannon range. Out comes a Kentucky Fried Chicken. Bird of Death. They give me the bad manners Aqua Jet. We're going to overfarm just as we can. Fire off the Hydro Cannon at good timing, and Feraligatr is going to sweep the entire team. Never forget that Gator still remains a top tier threat. In the next battle, we see Scizor in the lead position. We know we like to play this matchup. We're just going to go double Aerial Ace, as we have 5-4 to the charge moves, whereas Night Slash is straight 5. The first Aerial Ace goes unshielded, but we're still able to outpace. The opponent's going to be forced to invest a Protect shield, or potentially just play out the Zero shield. I've not seen anyone play out the Zero shield, but I guess some mad lad might. We then pivot out into Gator, looking to get ahead in energy. The opponent fire off the Night Slash, save Scizor as their own third shield, and then out comes Ferret. Ferret going to be greeted with the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon does a very solid chunk, and they don't even farm up to the Trailblaze. This is only a Swift. Whilst Gator might be incredibly glassy, Swift simply not going to cut it. Gator withstands the damage and the residual sucker punches, reaching the next Hydro Cannon, removing Ferret from the field of play. Out comes Golisopod, and thankfully they are running Fury Cutter. Annihilape, Ghost and Fighting typing means these Fury Cutters are double resisting. I think they're only doing 1 per turn. You can see my health bar is barely budging. We farm up, make an absolute heartbreaking feelings catch. The opponent does undercharge. We have yet more Fairy Wind damage. The opponent tries to sack Scizor, sack attempt unsuccessful. We're doubled up on Rage Fists, and the opponent is going to concede the match. Heading into the next battle, we see Moltres in the lead position. Despite them being a flyer and me being a grass type, this is more of a neutral matchup as opposed to a bad one. We can survive a fly, not well. One is survivable. I'm going to shield, and then I'm going to look to pick up the knockout with the acrobatics, hoping the opponent looks to call the Aerial Ace bait. Acrobatics does go through 2 protections. It isn't quite lethal, but that works out even better for me as we're able to Fairy Wind farm down afterwards. The opponent sends out Cradilly. We pivot into Gator. As they're on acid, the opponent catches onto Golisopod, and just like that, I think this game is completely over. Little does the opponent know, we've now forced the alignment that we want. Scizor actually isn't lethal. We go for the Hydro Cannon, actually undercharge, recognising we can just farm down for yet more energy with our Jumpluff. We've then already got well over an acrobatics bank. I'm going to try my luck catching the Rock Tomb onto Annihilape. The catch attempt is unsuccessful, but even if they fall send a Grass Knot, which they do, it simply isn't going to save them. These acids are resisted. I'm going to just shield now. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. A bit more tapping. You know the drill. The opponent is going to get fully counter farm down, and we're going to take that game. In the next battle, we see the other Dark and Flying type, you know, that really boring, bulky Vulture. Despite them running Air Slash, this is kind of where the team wants to see it. It's kind of mad to think that my Grass and Flying type is my best answer for Air Slash Mandibuzz. I often get asked why I hate basic meta Pokemon. This is the reason why. I hate them for super effective the entirety of the time, but they still lose the Zero Shield matchup to Jumpluff. Mandibuzz, give your head a wobble, buddy. That is pathetic. The opponent tries to snipe my Jumpluff with Dugong, and you might wonder, why have I gone Gator and not Annihilape? Well, the thought process is this is potentially a bait out for a counter user or a fighter, so I'm going to keep Annihilape lurking in the back. Whilst Feraligatr might struggle into the other ice and water type, the more common Lapras, it more than holds its own against Dugong, because the Shadow Claws hit for neutral and the Hydro Cannon spam just outpaces their slow moveset. The opponent actually faults on the draw on there, which does remove me from the field of play. I'm going to send out Annihilape, look to get an energy lead, the opponent sends back out Mandibuzz. I'm going to invest a Protect Shield, blocking up the incoming Aerial Ace. I'm not going to pivot out into Jumpluff. Instead, I'm just going to start vamping up and hope they are double weak to fight in, giving Annihilape a very easy punch everything down wink on. Down goes Mandibuzz. The opponent waits out their clock. Dugong, nothing more than a sacrificial swap. And out comes Gastrodon. Gastrodon going to be greeted with the boosted Rage Fist. However, you can see these Mud Slaps are tearing through my HP. We get off as much boosted counter damage as we physically can. I recognise I'm going to get farmed down. I send out Jumpluff. The opponent makes a huge mistake, sending out Dugong. Dugong going to be greeted with the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace picks up the knockout. The opponent tries to triple resisted. Mud Slap farm down Jumpluff. That is never happening. Jumpluff reaches the Aerial Ace and we take that game. Heading into the next battle, we see Stinky Binky in the lead position. Yes, you heard that right. That is what I call this stupid, annoying Pokemon. We save switch into Gator. The opponent gives me a huge energy lead before sending out Golisopod. Whilst Golisopod does fully wall the moveset, you can see two Hydro Cannons with the Shadow Claws come quite close to knocking out. We do manage to obtain ourselves a shield advantage here in the mid-game matchup, and that works for me. I'm going to let Gator go down, and once again, trust on my 2 shield 8. Of course, we can just send back out Jumpluff. We are going to have to tank an Scizor. I'm really hoping the opponent doesn't pivot out, as I just want to remove this Golisopod from the field of play. So I'm not actually going to overfarm too much. I'm just going to fire off the Aerial Ace, look to pick up the knockout, and then trust on my 2 shield 8 sweep in the back line. You can see I am spamming the switch. The opponent waits out the clock, recognising the timers are misaligned. This is likely a Power Gem, a Rock Blast, Rock Slide, whatever the stupid rock move this one opts to throw. Bait, but I don't really care. We're just going to shield as we've got to fire off the Rage Fist and look to start vamping up this counter damage. The opponent continues to stay in, which is kind of bamboozling to me, but I'm not complaining. We fire off the Rage Fist, winning CMP and forcing the final Protect Shield of the game. Annihilape definitely going to shield. The opponent go over yet another Power Gem bait, then pivot out into their own Annihilape. They're behind an energy. We're 2-stage boosted. Annihilape straight in and straight out. We're going to counter farm down Carbink and take that game. Shout out to my neighbour who's just started up their car, and that thing is super loud, so if you can hear that in the background, I apologise. In the next battle, we saw a Greninja lead with a Dusnoir safe switch. A lot of people do opt to run a Dusclops as opposed to Dusnoir because it is a bit more spammy, but you can see the Astonish damage is chunking through Gator's HP. We fire off the Hydro Cannon. The Hydro Cannon goes unshielded. I'm thinking, do I want switch? I don't really need switch, to be honest. I think an energy lead could be better. Is that a good decision? I guess we're about to find out. Jumpluff is going to get the Fairy Wind farm down, but not before one further Shadow Punch is reached. The Shadow Punch isn't really a problem, and we are going to leave well over an Acrobatics. Of course, Greninja cannot return as Acrobatics, despite only being neutral, would very easily one-shot them and vanquish them back to their Pokeball. Out comes Tinkaton. This is a very problematic Pokemon. But it turns out that getting a huge energy lead definitely works for me as we land back-to-back Acrobatics before they throw anything. Despite Jumpluff being in the red, they are going to have to full send a player off to knock me out, which they do. We send out Annihilape, the opponent pivots into Greninja. They don't throw at the best timings, they're only going to reach one move. I shield up the Night Slash, they get their boost, they don't reach another move, and now the question becomes, can they reach another play rough? I'm actually going to fire off the Rage Fist. Whilst I know this is going to be shielded, it does vamp up my counter damage. We're able to counter farm down before the next play rough is reached, and we're able to take that game. And that is just about going to wrap things up for today's Shoutcast. As I said in the intro, a huge shout out to TJ. This is his team, not mine. I'm just showcasing it. He's linked down below. Go give him a follow on Twitch. If you're enjoying the content, smash that like button. If you're new, consider subscribing. If you like your battles featured on my channel, my battle submission form is linked down below. And as always, a huge thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.